money is a figment of our imagination, and financial fair play is even more of a figment of our imagination. Right? They are subjective now. The rules of the game are subjective. The fact that in a competitive sport you can have subjective rules in itself is ridiculous, right? In itself is ridiculous. The fact that you can have subjective rules is absurd. It is absolutely absurd. That should not be a thing. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Two Footed Tackle podcast. I'm your host, Ari Stamatakos. We're back again. We are back again, and we are here to speak about the weekend's footballing actions. The Premier League returns over the weekend in terms of returning back to its weekend slots. No FA Cup action or League Cup action or whatever cup they're going to decide to have next to destroy players even more. But no, we're with all sarcasm and everything aside, we're back again with Premier League action over the weekend, and it was a very, very, very big day of Premier League action, or big weekend of Premier League action, I should say. Now, before we start, just get a couple formalities out of the way. Yes, my face is burnt. Yeah, you don't have to tell me. Yes, it's burnt. I know. Even if you didn't notice, or if you're an audio listener, yeah, my face is burnt. I went to the Australian Open, tennis today. Sat in the sun, didn't put sunscreen on, and this is the result. Now, I actually did that semi on purpose because I just wanted to get any colour. Like any colour will do. Red or brown or golden or black or whatever. Orange, blue, purple, any colour for my skin, I'll take. And red, you know what? It's actually better than being pasty white, in my opinion, anyway. Or for me, I feel a bit better like this, in all honesty. But yeah, the burn's not the worst thing in the world. The nose is definitely very much burnt, but it's alright. We'll survive. It is what it is. But yeah, if you are going to the Australian Open, or if you just live in Australia generally, don't do what I did. Put sunscreen on, because the sun is very dangerous, especially down here. Anyways, I digress. The Australian Open is on as we speak, so if you see me looking down a little bit more than usual, it's because I'm checking the scores. Stefanos Tsitsipas is playing at the moment, and at the time of recording, he's just won the first set 6-3, which is great. Felix Auger-Aliassime has lost the first set 6-1, and he's currently all tied up at 3-3 in the second. John Millman heading into the fifth set. I'm speaking about this like you guys care or don't know the results. You'll know the results by the time this comes out. And to be honest, you probably don't care because it's a football podcast. But I digress once again. Let's move on, shall we? Anything else to speak about? Stan Wawrinka's still running around, which is good to see. But anyway, I digress. That's the excuse for the burn. That's the excuse for the burn. Anyway, and I'm burnt a little bit on the arms, if you can see, or if you can tell from there. Bit burnt there, bit burnt on the forearms, but it is what it is. Anyway, let's move on. Let's continue, and let's actually start this. So yeah, it was a pretty hectic weekend of Premier League action. Pretty hectic Premier League weekend. Premier League weekend action. I think that's the best way to describe it. We're gonna speak on three things. Two things actually, as we normally do on this podcast. I want to speak about Chelsea, and I felt like I didn't want to speak about them after a loss, because then I'd be speaking very much on emotion and I wouldn't be able to critically analyse the situation. So I waited until we got a win, and it's taken a while, but Chelsea did a football win, which is insane. And then I want to speak on both derbies. I'll actually speak about both derbies first. I'll speak on both derbies first, briefly. Then I'll speak on Chelsea. Then, of course, as we always do, finish up with some A-League action. Some things happened midweek last week after the podcast came out, which I want to speak about. All right, let's kick things off. Let's start things off. Also, before I start, I hope everyone's well. I hope everyone is well. I hope the week has treated them nicely, and I hope everything's all good. Make sure you do all the good stuff and subscribe and subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the podcast, or like the videos of the podcast, like all the clips. A lot of clips have gone out in the past week about each top 6 Premier League club. So if you could share those around, they're a lot more palatable, especially without knowing about someone, especially without watching someone before. Watching like 10-minute videos is a lot easier than watching an hour-long podcast. So if you could share those around, get people to watch them, that would mean the world to me, because they are, once again, more palatable for the non-active listeners of this podcast. Anyway, I digress. Also, all the socials are in the links in the description on YouTube and in the bios of the Instagram and Twitters, and just search up Foot Tackle Podcast, you'll find it. All right, let's move on. Let's start things. Let's speak on both derbies. Let's kick things off by speaking on the first game of not the first game of the match week actually, but the first derby of the two, which we'll speak about, and that is of course the Manchester derby. United versus City, two sides who needed a result for two different reasons, and there of course was a side in London about, I don't know how many miles, but quite a few miles south of Manchester, in London, keeping a very, very close eye on this result. Of course, I'm referencing Arsenal, and they were very happy with the result. I can only imagine that 2-1 win for Manchester United did give them a little bit of breathing room that they had the opportunity to capitalise on against Spurs, which we'll touch on later, of course. But if we speak about the game, or we speak about the lineups in particular, I think a pretty standard lineup by Man City. A couple of injuries forced a couple of rotations in some areas, especially centre half, which is neither here or there, I guess. But apart from that, pretty standard team. When you look at United did go with that midfield of Eriksen, Fred, and Casemiro, playing as that kind of three with Bruno out on the right hand side. That kind of it worked. I'm not sure if he's played there previously, but he played there very well. And that back line as well. Wan-Bissaka comes in at right back, and Luke Shaw slots in a left side at centre half, alongside Varane, and then Malacia playing as left back. So it was there was no drastic changes to the starting 11, I don't think, from either side. And when we look at how the match went, it was pretty much the standard affair. I think I don't really think it was a overly interesting derby, if you were to call it that. I don't believe it was an overly intense derby by any means as well. So it was a derby where that was very, very cagey. I think that's definitely one way to describe it, especially in the first half. Very cagey. Both sides looking towards not conceding and not overextending themselves. Both sides just being really, really passive in the way that they wanted to play. City are probably a little bit better at doing that, because their ability to keep the ball and their ball retention ability is one of, if not the best in the world, right, as a unit. So they can play that game all day, especially in the first half. And United can definitely do that as well, because their ability to hit on the counter attack is exceptional so far this season as well. Their ability to sit back in numbers and to really hold a very good defensive shape, especially against teams that are slightly better than them, or have slightly better players to pass around and to maintain possession. So their ability at sitting back and almost controlling the tempo of the game without the ball. It's kind of the way United play, especially in this game. They kind of didn't know, they controlled the tempo without having the ball, which is a very, very hard thing to do. But yeah, they were just able to dictate the way that City wanted to play a little bit. Just didn't allow them to get into certain pockets of space. Didn't allow them to get in behind, to get Haaland into dangerous positions. Didn't really allow them to get many crosses into the box either, which also gives Haaland something to fight for. So yeah, United did very well in terms of shutting out City's main kind of threats in that first half. And the first half comes and goes without much happening at all, really. I'm not really sure what the shots were looking like and what the stats were looking like in that first half, if I can quickly find them. But it wasn't really a game that really had a big moment in it until later on, and it actually didn't occur with the first goal. The first goal, of course, comes from Jack Grealish at the back post. Just one of those goals that is very, very avoidable. Is very, very avoidable with the way that you can defend. Ball goes into the back post. I think it was a Kevin De Bruyne cross into the box. Grealish just I think it might have been It would have been maybe... Well, maybe it would have been Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I don't quite know, but whoever was underneath it just got caught under the ball, and Grealish definitely had the ability to get the momentum, get the run, get the jump, and rise above his defender to score the goal. 1-0 City, just after the hour, or just on the hour, I actually think. And yeah, City were in control, like just heavily in control. Didn't look like it was going to change anything. Like, the game didn't look like it was going to change. City looked very comfortable until maybe after the goal. United did start to get back into the game a little bit more. They obviously had to go for it. Anthony came on at halftime, which he came on at halftime for an injured Anthony Martial, I do think. So yeah, that of course was a massive spark for them. I think Anthony's a great player. I think I said last episode that he's United's probably most dangerous threat. Potentially, like, he has potential for United. He has potential to be United's greatest threat going forward. That's how I want to word it. Yeah, with just his pace, with his agility, with his dribbling ability, with his ability to get past the man. Yeah, I think he could do very, very special things, and he was able to do that when he did come on. And then, yeah, what happened after that? After the goal, just after the hour mark. Any other subs that came on? Oh, of course, yes, Garnacho come on. Garnacho comes on after about 70 minutes or so, and he made an impact, obviously, for the second goal. He made a massive impact. But if we look at it at the next big moment, and really the moment that defined the derby, it was the goal that was awarded to by Bruno Fernandes. The ball was played in behind by Casemiro. Marcus Rashford runs from an offside position, doesn't touch the ball, but leaves it go to Bruno Fernandes, who tucks it coolly past Ederson to equalise. Now, this is something that I want to speak about because it's the talking point of the weekend, and I can't not speak about it. However, I don't really want to spend too long on it because it's VAR, and I hate it with a passion. Okay, how do we attack this? Let's just attack it bluntly. I think it's the most blatant. United didn't cheat. That's a very, very harsh word to say. United didn't cheat. But that goal should not have stood. It is the most obvious goal to disallow you could ever see. Like, Rashford clearly in an offside position when Casemiro plays the ball. Rashford darts his run towards the ball, into the path of the ball, influences both Akanji in order to see whether or not he's able to get the ball. It affects Kyle Walker by influencing which run he's going to track, and it also influences Ederson's decision making to whether or not he should fully commit to coming out. And Ederson, at the end of the day, doesn't know who's going to take the shot. Was it going to be Rashford or Fernandes? He didn't know, meaning he influenced the game. Marcus Rashford, it is clear and obvious that he influenced the play. Clear and obvious that he influenced the play, and he definitely had some form of impact on both City defenders and the goalkeeper in that passage of play. It is the most obvious goal to disallow. The most obvious goal to disallow. And initially it was disallowed, and then for the referee to overturn it and for VAR not to overturn that decision, I mean, what's the point of VAR? Rashford clearly impedes Ederson's decision-making because he doesn't know who's going to take the shot. It also affects Akanji and Walker because both of them aren't aware about who is going to take the ball, meaning that their decisions have been changed and their decision-making is changed based on someone in an offside position, meaning it's offside. To me, it's the most blatant thing you could ever do. Like, it's the most blatant thing you could ever kind of... it's the most blatant thing you can ever see, in my opinion. I just don't get it. I genuinely don't get it. But like, what's the point, right? What's the point when it's VAR and it's obviously the most arbitrary thing in the world? VAR is subjective now. The rules of the game are subjective. The fact that in a competitive sport you can have subjective rules in itself is ridiculous, right? The fact that you can have subjective rules is absurd. It is absolutely absurd. That should not be a thing. But the fact that this is probably the most subjective rule in the book, maybe barring determining what's a clear goal scoring opportunity or not, that is a little bit more objective. The fact that you can have the rule should be, if if the ball is played to a player who's in an offside position, it should be offside. If the player is within a 5-meter radius of the ball when the ball's played to him and he's in an offside position, even if he doesn't touch it, it should be offside or something along those lines, because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I don't see why they have this just stupidity about them. I don't see why they have this stupidity about them, where they can, like the stupidity about the rule, where they can kind of dictate whether or not something should be allowed or should be disallowed based off kind of not a fact. Everything in football is a meritocracy, right? 99% of things in football are a meritocracy, except a rule, which in its own right should be the thing that has the most merit. It shouldn't it? Or should be the thing that's determined by fact. I don't know. The fact that you can have a rule that's subjective in itself is stupid. I can't think of many rules in other sports that are subjective, like innately subjective. Anyways, I digress. That occurred, and there was debates about whether or not it was going to stand. It stood anyway. City needed to move on, and they didn't. City were very angry about it, as everyone should be, or as every City supporter and every City player should be. But they had to move on quickly, and they didn't. United were on the front foot straight away from that moment. Had the ability to United had the ability to kind of take that momentum and kind of amplify it. The noise in Old Trafford, from watching it from home, obviously was insane. And when the ball is played through to Garnacho, who's onside, he twists and turns, can't really find the shooting option, and then passes back to Marcus Rashford, who taps into an empty net. Delirium. Utter delirium from the United fans, and it was probably well-deserved. I think a draw was the right result, in my opinion, but it was probably well-deserved that United got a goal that was fair, because you can't end that game in that kind of... It's hard to end that game in the way that they did if it did end 1-1. I think United definitely deserved to get a goal back, and they did. So United definitely did deserve to get a proper goal, and they did do that. Yeah, and it of course came from Marcus Rashford, who has been on the form of his life. Rashford's been on the form of his life. So fair play to him. He got the goal, got the win for United, all 3 points. And that obviously put United at that stage in third place, 4 points behind Arsenal in top, and 1 point behind their noisy neighbour. Now, are they in a title race? They're 9 points behind. They're 9 points behind as things stand. City are second with 8 points behind. To put it bluntly, and sorry to crush all United fans' hearts, so they're not in a title race. They're just not in a title race. It would be very disingenuous to say that United are in a title race and Newcastle aren't, considering they're equal on points, and Newcastle have a plus a 14 goal difference on United. So, yeah, very disingenuous to think that United are in a title race and Newcastle aren't. Considering Newcastle have only lost 1 game this season as well, whereas United have lost 4. But I don't necessarily think that's an overly bad thing. What it means for City, well, City have now lost 2 on the spin. I don't know, one was an EFL Cup game, but they all count. And now they they host Tottenham on Friday morning Australia time, which will be another very interesting game. Another game which could decide the shape of the top 4 come May. Okay, let's move things on to the second derby, the North London derby. And I was going to come on and rant and rave about this derby and kind of say about how good it was or whatever, but can we? I mean, it was a bit of a bully show, wasn't it? A bit of a schoolyard bully thing from Arsenal, wasn't it? They just came to Tottenham's gaff, came to their home, and just dominated from start to finish. I just think Arsenal were. Arsenal from what I saw were just dominant. I don't really think it was much of a. I don't really think it was much of a difference in terms of game styles. In terms of not in terms of game styles, in terms of game state. I think both sides potentially had more of the. Both sides had equal amounts of possession in those equal amounts of areas, but the equal amount of shots, potentially equal amount of big chances. But Arsenal just looked comfortable. Got 2-0 up nice and early. First goal came from Hugo Lloris, and Hugo Lloris' own goal, and second goal came from a gorgeous strike by Martin Odegaard. And from then on, it kind of just felt like much of the muchness. Much of the same? Much of the muchness, is that a phrase? I don't know. But it just felt like much of the same, really. It was a game... full transparency here. Obviously, this game was on at 3:30 in the morning Australia time. And, of course, I had just finished watching Chelsea. And I knew I had to get up at about 9:30, 10 o'clock for the tennis. So I was umming and ahhing about actually whether or not to watch this game. I decided to tune in for as long as I could, and as you can tell by the yawns in my voice, I still haven't had a lot of sleep. I've had a pretty big day as well. But this game was so weird, right? Because I had a dream, or at least I thought I had a dream, that that Saka got into the right half space, got to the byline, had a shot, and Lloris kind of grabbed it. Lloris kind of caught it and then kind of fell into his own net. That is a dream that I thought I had, right? Until I watched like the first 10 minutes and then fell asleep. I woke up without looking at the result and chucked on the extended mini match, which is an unbelievable thing. 45 minutes of just you can watch a full football game in a half. I think it's great. I watched it at like 1.5 speed though, just to get through it. Just get through it a bit more easier. But I was watching that, and to my surprise, to my utter shock, I was experiencing deja vu. I was like, I've seen this before. I swear I've seen this. I swear I dreamt about this goal. I swear to God, I dreamt about it. And I was like, as Saka got to the byline, I was like, is he going to shoot? Like, I swear he shoots. And then he shot. And I was like, wait, is the risk going to just fall into his own net? And he did. He just let the ball go in. I was like, I'll tell you what, I was like, I swear I dreamt this. Turns out I didn't dream it. I just watched it and was in a complete daze while I was watching it and completely missed it, right? Or missed it, but my subconscious has picked it up, obviously. This was just it was so weird. I just woke up and was like, I've seen this before. I swear I'm having deja vu, but turns out I actually because what had happened was I'd gotten up and I tapped my phone and it said like 9:20 or whatever. I was like, oh shit, I didn't watch the game. Let me flick on the mini match. And what you have with Optus Sport is that don't spoil the results, which is great. I had the results. I was watching the mini match, still half asleep, but at least I was awake. And I was like, I swear I've seen this before. And then I quickly checked my phone. I grabbed my phone, I opened my phone, and on Optus Sport on my phone was like the 20th minute or whatever it was, which was like 5 minutes after the Saka goal. Yeah, the Saka goal was in the 14th minute, and my phone was on the 20th minute. So I was like, all right, so that actually what happened. I didn't dream it. I literally saw it happen, which is just something which I found quite funny. And I guess it goes to show, don't watch football tired. And luckily, I went back and watched the mini match. Otherwise, I would have come on here and spouted some wrong stuff. But yeah, thankfully, I actually watched it to actually know what was going on. But yeah, that was quite funny anyway. That was actually funny enough. Hugo Lloris' first own goal in his entire Spurs career. So there you go. The second goal was phenomenal from Odegaard. I've already covered that. And from then on, Spurs had chances. Of course, I think it might have been Sessegnon chance where he shot it and Ramsdale made a good save. That was a pretty good chance. But apart from that, both sides had chances. Kane had some chances. Kulusevski had some chances. But yeah, it was once again Arsenal domination, and I really don't want to kind of not jinx it or anything. I really don't, because I hate the fact that I'm slowly starting to maybe not love this Arsenal team, but there's something about this Arsenal team, right? If they don't win the league from here, like, they're 6 points. No, they're 8 points clear. They're 8 points clear with 20 games to go. And Gary Neville made a great point. Gary Neville made a fantastic point, actually. He said, because of the ridiculous levels that City and Liverpool have put on this Premier League, have put with this league, everyone thinks that every game they drop is losing the title. When realistically, this is probably just a normal ebbing and flowing of the Premier League season. This is probably just normal. A normal ebbing and flowing game. A normal ebbing and flowing Premier League season. Where some teams get a jump, if results fall their way, they skip out to an 8, 9, 10, 11 point lead. And then they lose a couple of games. Get some injuries, they fall back down, it closes to 4, 5 points. Then they verse each other, then it's a draw. Then it closes to 4, then to 3, then to 1. Then back out to 5, then back out to 1. Then the other team gets ahead by 3 points. That kind of ebbing and flowing type season. There's still 20 games to go. We're technically not in the halfway stage. Well, Arsenal and City still have 1 game to go before they're at the halfway stage of the season. So, I don't know. What's Arsenal's run home like? They've got United at home. If they get all 3 points there, that would be massive. And then they've got City at home. And then other than that, they've got Liverpool away in April. City away. Oh, that's a tough stretch. So they've got 4 games. So, okay, that's a tough stretch. So their final 6 games, Arsenal's final 6 games, are City away, Chelsea at home, Newcastle in Newcastle, Brighton at home, Forest away, a Forest side that could potentially be fighting for their lives, and Wolves at home, a Wolves side that could potentially be fighting for their lives. That's going to be an intense final 6 weeks for Arsenal. And I think, yeah, so they go Thursday to Sunday, and then Sunday, Monday. So they've got 1 midweek game in there. That's the first game against City. But before then, they've got Southampton at home, West Ham away, Liverpool away, Leeds, Palace at home, Fulham away, Bournemouth at home, Leicester, Villa, City, Brentford, Everton, City in the Cup, and then United. So going back from the end to the start. It's going to be interesting. Going to be very, very interesting to see how, to see whether or not Arsenal can get it done. I hate the fact that I have this slight affiliation and this, maybe not affiliation, this slight soft spot for them. I'm turning soft. I'm turning too much into a neutral. I need to hate them again. Maybe when fucking Arsenal fan TV starts saying that Mikel Arteta is the best coach of all time, then maybe I'll start to hate them then. But yeah, anyway, let's move on. Let's speak about a club that I don't hate, but get on my nerves, and that's Chelsea. Great segue. Where do we go with this team? Where do we go with this team? Now, I've just written here on my round sheet. I just put Chelsea. What the fuck is going on? And I've put 6 talking points. I put Badiashile, Mudryk, João Felix, tactics, injuries, and Potter with a question mark. Okay. Now, before I start, I was going to do this tactically. I was going to do a tactical analysis. I was, because I'm interested. But the problem with that is that I don't know what tactics we're trying to play. So I can't really analyze it without knowing what tactics we're trying to play. And full transparency, this is coming from a fan's perspective. This is coming from a purely fan's perspective. I'm going to be saying we instead of they. Something, a little bit of one of my pet hates. And especially when I'm trying to speak about it from a non-biased perspective. This isn't a Chelsea podcast, so I try and say they as much as possible. But for this, I'm just going to say we. Anyway, I digress. Chelsea. Was going to do this tactically, but I just don't know what tactics we play, so how can I do it tactically if I don't know what tactics we're actually trying to do? Anyway, maybe in 3 or 4 weeks I can come to a conclusion. Where do we go with Chelsea? Now, I wanted to speak about them at some stage. For the pretty much since Potter took over, I did one with Potter about comparing tactics. I'm pretty sure I did anyway, and with Tuchel. And I've wanted to do kind of like a catch-up kind of thing where I speak about them again, but I haven't really found the right time, and I wanted to do it after a win. And the Chelsea's last win before this came against Bournemouth. Well before the World Cup break. Sorry, it was actually the game after the World Cup. That's what it was. My apologies. It was the Boxing Day fixture after the World Cup, right? So I could have spoken about them. I could have spoken about that. I could have spoken about them at that stage, but I thought, no, I'll hold off. I was like, all right, we'll probably beat Forest, so I'll speak about them then. Didn't win. We might beat City, so I'll speak about them then. Didn't beat City. We could beat City again in the Cup. Didn't beat City in the Cup. We have to beat Fulham. I'll speak about them. Didn't beat Fulham. So I was like, am I ever going to speak about Chelsea? And then they finally pulled their finger out of the arse. In the memory of Gianluca Vialli, I thought it was a good performance in memory of one of Chelsea's biggest and greatest icons. Thank God we won in commemoration for Gianluca Vialli, who is looking down on his Chelsea team right now, thinking, "Gee, I could help these 11 blokes, couldn't I? Stick him up front, stick him on the touchline. He could help him, I think." So yeah, it was a good match in terms of the commemorations behind it. I thought both the Mathiardi and the Shed kind of did fantastic stuff in terms of commemorating them brilliantly. The round of applause was great. Getting all the Chelsea legends out was beautiful as well. That was a good moment, and we won. Thank God for that, because we needed to. Now let's speak about a couple of things. Let's speak about the transfers first. Transfers first. Chelsea, I don't get it. I really don't get it, because Chelsea signed ridiculous amounts of players in the off-season. Just off the top of my head, it was Koulibaly, it was Aubameyang, it was Zakaria on loan. Wait, let's do it back to front. So we didn't sign a goalkeeper. We signed Cucurella, Koulibaly, Fofana. They're the 3 centre-backs. They're the 3 defenders we signed, I think. Then we signed Zakaria. We signed it on loan. We got Aubameyang. Gallagher came back, so we won't count him. I must be forgetting. We haven't only signed 6 people. That can't happen. Yeah, so, okay. Actually, let's just look at all the players that Chelsea have brought in. Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, so Chelsea brought in Raheem Sterling, Koulibaly, Solonina, backup goalkeeper, Chukwuemeka, Cucurella, Quesadi from Inter Milan, Wesley Fofana, Aubameyang, Zakaria, and then in January we signed David Dachau Fofana from Molde, Badashile, Andre Santos, João Felix on loan, and Mikhalo Mudryk. All of these players, according to FOTMob, this is the amount: 265k, 85 million, 83 million, 56 million, 13 million. This is dollars, by the way. This is dollars. $27 million, $96 million, and 22, 122, 18, on loan for nothing, 18, 54, 18, 16, 103. That's all in Australian dollars, by the way. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Considering Chelsea are in a position where they're in a transitional position, they can't go out and spend ridiculous amounts of money on players. I don't understand the logic behind doing that, because you're just filling up the squad with so much more potential dead wood. What Chelsea needed to do, and the way that, I mean, I'm not a director of football, right? So take my opinion with a grain of salt, right? What I would have done is stripped back the squad, gotten rid of all the deadwood first, and promote the kids. Even if it means Chelsea finishing 11th, 12th, 13th for one season, and then potentially even 2 seasons, right? The thing is with football, a lot of people don't realise this. The thing is with football is that it comes around next year. So even if you have a bad year, you can just go again the next year. If you have a bad year again, you can go again the next year. And what that allows you to do is that it allows you to prepare. It allows you to prepare for next season and the season after that and in 10 seasons' time, right? So I would have stripped back all the deadwood, the likes of Aspilicueta, the likes of Jorginho, the likes of, I think, N'Golo Conte. I think his time is done. I think he's been a great player. I think he's a great player when he's fit, but he's just never fit. The likes of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, maybe the likes of Hakim Ziyech, Christian Pulisic, Kai Havertz, to maybe if you think that, Edouard Mendy, if you think that, like, these players who are not kids but not the best and who aren't good enough, because I think because I spoke about this last week with Chelsea, how the gap between the kids and the best is too great. So you need to fill up that gap with a bunch of squad players, right? And a bunch of players who don't think they're the best. The problem with that is that the players that Chelsea have in that bracket are terrible. They're not good at football, right? They suck. Or at least they're playing poorly. So they needed to refresh that aspect first and promote the kids. Promote Gallagher, Loftus-Cheek maybe if you want to keep him. Chukwuemeka, when you sign him, obviously promote him and give him the game time that he deserves, right? Lewis Hall has been great. Amari Hutchinson as well has showed some signs of promise, despite not seeing the world alight, right? So you have to go about it in a certain way. Chelsea going about it by just picking out, I'll sign you for 80, you for 80, 60, 40, 100, 85, 90, 75, 30, 42, 25, 28. Like, you can't just pick out players and just attach arbitrary values to them. Like, I just don't think it's smart business. I really don't think it's smart business. Like the Mudryk signing, right? I think he's got 7 and 7 in 11 starts in the league, right? Which is great. Great return. 14 goals, goal contributions in 11 starts. I think something along those lines. That's great. That's really good. That's something Chelsea need. But for £100 million, £80 million, like I know money is a figment of our imagination, and financial fair play is even more of a figment of our imagination, right? Both of those things in football do not exist. Money does not exist in football. It is fake. It is just a number, right? There's no actual value anymore. It's just a number. And financial fair play, well, that's been a farce for however long, right? So that's not news to anyone. But the way that Chelsea are going about this, both transfer policy-wise, tactically, the vision that Todd Bowley's trying to put on this group and put on this squad, I just don't know. In Nkunku as well, I forgot about him. He's a player that's coming through. I don't know. I really don't know. It is one of those things, isn't it? Where do we start? I've spoken for about 10 minutes. Like, where do you go from here? Like, where do you go? If we look at the squad, let's look at the squad. And if we're looking at potential for the next Chelsea title-winning squad, let's look at it, right? When are Chelsea next going to win a title? Who's going to be in this squad? Kepa, Bettinelli, Mendy, or Slonina. Anyway, the goalkeeper that we signed. Probably none of them. I can't see Mendy being there. Kepa, to me, is too inconsistent, even though it was great on the weekend. Mendy, to me, can't play with his feet, doesn't fit the pot away. I think none of them. Defenders. Aspilicueta, too old. Thiago Silva, by the time Chelsea are going to win the league, he might be 46. So, probably too old. Koulibaly, same thing, and he probably isn't good enough, let's be honest. I think Ben Chilwell will be there. I think Trevor Chalobah will be there. Reece James will be probably captain. Marc Cucurella, He's 24. I think he'll be there. Fofana and Badiashile, probably as well, right? Probably as well. If we go to midfielders, Mateo Kovacic, potentially. Jorginho, no. N'Golo Conte, no. Zakaria, probably not. Loftus-Cheek, probably not. Mason Mount, probably. Conor Gallagher, probably not. Carney Chukwuemeka, yes. And Andre Santos, probably. Forwards, Aubameyang, no. Sterling, probably not. He's 28, probably not. Hakim Ziyech, no. Christian Pulisic, probably not. Kai Havertz, probably not. João Felix, probably not. Mudryk, you'd assume so. Broja, maybe. Fofana, probably. That, to me, screams a squad that needs overhauling. That needs refreshing, and that needs to be completely torn up, in a sense, and refurbished. And the first... So, here you go. Here's an analogy for you. When you tear up carpet to put floorboards in, you don't put the floorboards in first and then tear up the carpet. You tear up the carpet and then put your floorboards in. You tear up what's already there to refurbish it, to change it, to get it better, to make it look nice. Chelsea have looked at this carpet that needs fixing and have gone, I'll tell you what we'll do this. Just a bunch of wooden planks on top of it. No order, no real structure to anything. Just chuck as much wooden shit on top of it to make it look like floorboards and you'll be fine. That's the equivalent of what Chelsea have done. There's been no care. There's been no methodical true style of signing that Todd Bowley has gone with. It's just, okay, who's been in the news? Oh, this Mudryk guy, Arsenal wanting for 100 million. Yeah, let's just buy him. Let's just get him. What transfer policy is that? Like, that's not a transfer policy. What transfer policy is that? If Arsenal went after him, if Arsenal didn't want to sign Mudryk, and Fabrizio Romano wasn't allegedly, potentially, maybe, who knows, paid off to do some things around the deal, Chelsea would not... Todd Bowley wouldn't even know who the bloke is, right? Todd Bowley wouldn't know who the bloke is. So let's just get that fact, right? Let's just get that factual, right? It is the most absurd transfer policy. And it goes to show once again that Chelsea are a disconnected football club. We're a disconnected football club. There is a very, very little faith I have in this football club. Very, very little faith I have in this football club in terms of the direction that they're going. The direction that the club's going, I have little faith. I have a few things that I like. One of them isn't the injuries. The injury record is ridiculous. I don't know whether or not they're being overplayed, overworked, overtrained. We don't have a physio, or we have shit physios, we have shit doctors. I don't know, but that needs to change because we can field a starting 11 that's injured. That would be better than our starting 11 that actually plays. Let's get that for fact, right? Secondly, that's the thing, the transfer policy as well. They're the two things which I potentially don't like, and the transfer policy kind of enhances or kind of moves along to the general direction of the club. Okay, so you have that. And then, so they're the things that I don't like. What I do like about this club, though, is two things. Some of the players, like I said, I think Badiashile showed good signs. Reece James, obviously. Chukwuemeka, obviously. Lewis Hall, obviously. And Barry Hutchinson has shown some not bad signs. Mason Mount, I still really like Mason Mount. And there is that aspect of the squad which I like. The young core in this squad, I like. Despite it being bought in some places, I do like this young core. And I do love the man on the touchline. I do really like Graham Potter. I really do. I think this is where I kind of wanted to do a tactical analysis, but I still want to wait until our tactics are set in stone, right? I want him to succeed. I really do. And I think he will. Given time, given backing, given given time, given backing, and given the freedom to sign the players he wants to sign and to play the way that he wants to play without being pressured into you must get results, otherwise you're sacked, which I know is a tough ask for Chelsea Football Club, right? But I think he can do a very, 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 very good job for Chelsea. Very good job. I think he can be the first English manager to win the Premier League. It's between him and Eddie Howe, right? Either of them are going to be the first manager to win the Premier League, and I think Potter tactically is a little bit better than Howe. I think Howe potentially has better man management skills, but I think Potter has been a person that wants to improve that side of his managerial game. He's been very public about that as well, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah. And and this goes on to what Chelsea need, right? And there's a poster over my right shoulder that kind of demonstrates what Chelsea need as I turn and sorry, apologies for audio listeners. But if that's going to focus on that poster up there, I'm moving out of the way so it focuses on the poster. Once again, apologies for audio listeners. I'm just pointing to a poster which I'll now describe. That's in the background of the shop. That poster up there, if it's focusing on it, it's focusing as best it could. Now, that is the kind of the stage and the scene that was that has been illustrated in the 87th minute of the 2012 Champions League final at the Allianz Stadium or the Allianz Arena in Munich, the 19th of May 2012. 62,500 people in attendance on a beautiful 7:45 p.m. kickoff. There was a moment in that game where Chelsea needed a certain type of player, and I feel like this is pretty poignant as to what Chelsea don't have at the moment. The ball gets swung in from Juan Mata, and uprising Didier Drogba, and the commentary: Chelsea's man for the big occasion scores his biggest ever goal in what may be his last match for the club. Right? Of course, we all know he scored the equaliser, scored the penalty in the shootout. It's good. We all know that, right? But the reason why I wanted to bring that up was because that squad and that man, Didier Drogba in particular, signifies one type of footballer. One type of footballer that Chelsea have lacked for a very, very long time. Potentially ever since that man scored that goal. A leader. A true grab the game by the horns, grab the team by the scruff of the neck, grab them by the collar, and drag them over the line leadership. When was the last time Chelsea had that? Eden Hazard? Maybe. Diego Costa? Maybe. But ever since that man scored that goal in that game to win that trophy in that stadium against that team, Chelsea have lacked that leader that stands up when the responsibility is on him to stand up. Doesn't have to be a striker, doesn't have to be a player in the same ilk as Didier Drogba. It can be a goalkeeper, centre back, centre mid, right back, left mid, left back, who cares? And it doesn't have to be a shrewd business decision. It could be a £100 million player. It could be an academy player. Chelsea need a player that when the moment is there for the game to be won, or when the moment is there for him to save his team, or when his team needs saving, that's the time where that player grabs the team and says, "You're coming with me, we're getting a result." Chelsea don't have that. Chelsea have 11 players who, like the man here, Didier Drogba, right? One of the most selfless footballers of all time, right? Especially for Chelsea. One of the most selfless footballers of all time. He was a number 9 who didn't really care about scoring goals, right? He was a number 9 that's job and what he was best at was getting other people into the game. That in itself shows true selflessness, right? But that's besides the point. Chelsea have a bunch of selfish footballers in a sense of they want everyone else to do the hard yards and they want to take the glory. A lot of players in this squad are like that. He wasn't like that. Frank Lampard wasn't like that. Petr Cech wasn't like that. John Terry wasn't like that. Even as far back as the 05 team. Claude Makelele wasn't like that. Joe Cole potentially wasn't like that. I don't know for a fact. Damien Duff. These players weren't like that, right? They had the glory because they put in the work. This squad wants all the glory without putting in the work. There's about 3 players in this squad that want to put in the work and are showing that they're putting in the work. He's a player that put in the work day in, day out. And what did he get? He scored his biggest ever goal in what may be his last match. The perfect footballing story. Granted, it wasn't his final match for the club, but the story is still the same, right? The club need to point to players like him and point to players in a similar ilk of him to show what this club needs. This club needs players who, and I spoke about the transfer policy, this is about who they should target, right? Chelsea need players who are leaders of not just a team, but a club. Are leaders of clubs, of football clubs. They're the leaders. They're the spokesperson. They are the representation of a football club. That's what he was. That's what a lot of people in that squad that won that trophy were. And have that won leagues before it, and won leagues and cups and so many trophies before it. That's the type of player that those players were. Chelsea don't have that at the moment. And that's something that they need. Because what this allows, I keep pointing to him because I want it to be fully known that what he allows, what players like Drogba allow, it allows for so much pressure to be put off everyone. Because when you have strong leaders throughout the team, that spine of Cech, Terry, Lampard, Drogba, for the best part of a decade, just over, right? And then sprinkled in there, at times, your Michael Ballack's, your Michael Essien's, your Joe Cole's, right? These players, your Juan Matas, your Ramirez, your Ashley Cole playing left back, right? Another leader, right? Another player, I think, in this game, that penalty in this game, right? Like players who will just be players who take so much pressure off the coach, so much pressure off the board, so much pressure off the club, because when the line is ready to be drawn, they pick up that stick and they draw the line in the sand and they say, no, we're taking this club over the line. We're getting a result. We're getting through this period because they're leaders, and that's what they do. The squad that we have right now don't have leaders. They don't know how to deal with when things don't go their way. There's about 3 leaders in this team. Whereas in teams like that, Drogba, Lampard, Terry, Cech, Cole, Ballack, so many leaders. So many leaders. Almost practically 9 leaders in that team. So that's obviously something that Chelsea need to target. They need to develop. And that comes from the top down. You can say what you want about Chelsea in the mid-2000s and how obviously Roman came about, etc., etc. But Chelsea in the Roman era, really, but in particular from about 04 till 12, pretty much till that moment, Chelsea were a strong football club with standards. Strong football club. I don't agree with the constant sacking of managers, like Mourinho goes and then it's Scolari and then Grant and then Di Matteo gets sacked 6 months after that game. Villas-Boas. Anyone else that I'm missing? I don't think so. I think they were those 4. Ancelotti gone. Rafa gone. So I don't agree necessarily with that type of rotation, but what you had was you had an owner who cold. Roman Abramovich, cold owner. You had a coach, Jose Mourinho. I know he wasn't the boss then, but the point stands. You had the coach, Jose Mourinho, cold. Frank Lampard in midfield, cold. Didier Drogba up front, cold. Leaders of men that took no shit from anyone and that got the job done. Chelsea don't have that right now. I think Graham Potter can become that. I think he's still young, still relatively inexperienced. I think he can become that with time. Thiago Silva is that, but he won't be there for long. I think Benoit Badiashile can become that. This big, dominant presence, aggressive centre-half. I think he can become that. I don't think Kepa can become that, or Mendy. Mendy maybe, but I don't think he'll be there for much longer. Mount, maybe. Fofana up front. I mean, like the striker Fofana, maybe. Who knows? But that's something that Chelsea need. And that's the way that they can turn the ship around, by getting players like him. Just wanted to point that out. I just wanted to get it involved a little bit, because I've touched on the ones over my left shoulder, big R9, a big Zinedine. Where is he? There he is. Wanted to touch on these ones as well, which I did. Okay, I think that's probably enough on Chelsea. Otherwise, I'll drive myself mad, and no one wants that. Trust me, no one wants to see me flip my load. That's not it. Flip the table. I can't think right now. To be honest. But all I do know is that that's enough on Chelsea. Spoken about them for quite a while. Okay, let's move on to A-League. Let's touch on the A-League. I want to touch on 3 points. My phone has just died, so I don't really want to get them up on my laptop because it'll fuck the frame rate, so I'll just have to try and remember them. Okay, we had victory sanctions. That's what I want to speak about first. Okay, victories, sanctions happened last week. I don't want to touch too much on this because it's been covered to death. It was a $500,000 fine. No tickets available for the rest of the season. I don't think no away fans available for the rest of the season. And a 10-point suspended sentence. A 10-point suspended 10-point deduction, which will be enforced. Shall any situations evolve over the next 3 seasons. So yeah, basically what this means is Victory fans can't do anything dumb for 3 years, because otherwise they'll get that 10 points. No fans can buy tickets, so it's only members. So basically what Chelsea had at the back end of last year, with only season ticket holders going. Basically what it is. And no away fans. That's what it is, I'm pretty sure. Covered to death. I think it's a fine. I don't think it's overly harsh. I don't think it's overly lenient. $500,000 fine for a club that's already in a bad financial position is punishment enough. I think a suspended the point deduction is probably maybe a little bit lenient. I maybe would have docked him maybe 3 or 4 points, or at the very least given it a 0-0 given it a 3-0 win to Melbourne City. That game will be rescheduled in April, or will be replayed in April. So yeah, maybe points-wise a little bit lenient, because Victory can still win the game against City. I don't think they will, but they still technically can. So yeah, maybe a point deduction would have been fair, but I don't think it's overly bad, lenient, or harsh. Yeah, okay, that's it. There was another thing that I wanted to speak about. I've got one more point in my head that I don't really want to look at. I probably should have either written them down or not let my phone die. This is what happens when you don't remember your own sheets, people. Anyway, it's a fill time before I think about it. I'll touch on OSM. Victory announced that OSM will be the active support that caused this whole hoo-ha. Will be disbanding. OSM have now made a statement saying that they will not disband, and that they actually deleted their post apologising to Tom Glover, Alex King, and the cameraman. Just so disappointing. I know this for a fact. I know this for a fact. A percentage, not saying how big, not saying how small, a percentage of people in that active support don't care about football. A percentage of people in that active support do not care about football. For the betterment of the club, if they care about the club as much as they say they do, they should disband. Because they'd cause this. Not all of them. Not everyone's at fault. That's why I say some. Some people are at fault for this, but it's that thing, right? One person gets punished, everyone gets punished. It's a deterrent. It's the ultimate deterrence for anyone. if they really cared about the club as much as they think they do, they should disband. But turns out they just want to run their clubs independently, and they just want to not care about the club, even though the club has asked for them to disband. If they care about the club as much as they say they do, they follow the orders of the club. That's how it works. But yeah. Anyway. I know for a fact some of them don't care about football. A percentage of those people in that active support don't care about football. So it is like, what's the point? It is like, what's the point? So there's that. So basically I wrote down 3 things when I wanted to cover about the A-League. I wrote 3 things. I know what the third one is. Oh, I'm just okay. Apologies, frame rate issues are impending for those listening on for those watching on YouTube. I apologize. I just have to find out what my second point was. It's gonna kill me. It is gonna kill me. Yeah, there we go. That's what it was. Okay, there we go. Found it. Got it. Sorry, we're back. Hopefully the FPS should be fine now. That's what we were. Okay. The second thing I want to touch on was, let me know in the comments below, or tweet at the podcast, or tweet at me. Should we be playing games at 3 p.m. in the afternoon during summer? This came about during the Western Sydney versus Melbourne City game, which had a very, very, very good goal by Richie van der Veen. I think that was his name anyway. Yeah, Van der Vert. It's not Van der Vert. Van der Vaart. Who knows? I can't quite remember. That's very, very poor. It was a great goal nonetheless. I digress. Should we be playing games in the middle of the afternoon in summer? I don't know. It's, of course, because the heat is ridiculous. Tomorrow it's going to be 38 degrees. I'm in Melbourne at about 3-4 p.m. Should we be risking this? Should we be taxing the players' bodies this harshly? I don't know. Is it something that they just need to get over? That's very harsh to say that. I think it is a... We just have to fight through it for the betterment of the league. Unless you want to play every game at night during the peak of summer. I don't know. Unless you want to play every game at night during the peak of summer. I don't know what you want to do. I just think... Can you afford to play every game at night? I mean, we already had the Perth Glory versus Sydney FC game, which I'll touch on later. So the home team Perth, the game ended at 10:30. I think game ended at 10:30. For Sydney people, the team they were versing, it ended at 12:30 in the morning. And for people in Newcastle, it ended at 2:30 a.m. That to me is just absurd. Like, that to me is ridiculous. That to me is ridiculous how that can happen. But it's time zoned, right? I just think that's quite funny, and I think it's ridiculous that that's happening. But once again, you can't avoid it because Perth, it's not Perth's fault. They live 6 years away. Although, binning off Western Australia and becoming a republic for everyone else, thoughts? I mean, what did Western Australia offer anyway? There we go, just alienated an entire state. I'm sorry, Western Australia. I've actually been. I've been to Perth once. It was a 3-hour stopover at 4 a.m. coming back from Singapore. I was 9, and I don't remember anything. Actually, that's a lie. I remember standing outside the old Subiaco Oval, where West Coast and Freo used to play football before Optus. I remember standing outside there and getting a photo. That photo's got to be somewhere. My dad's probably got it. But yeah, your city was very nice at 4 o'clock in the morning. No cars on the road, which was great. Anyway, I digress. Should we be playing games at 3 a.m. in the morning? How'd I transition to that? That's quite weird. 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I should say. Probably not, but I don't see a way around it. And yeah, the third talking about I wanted to say was Simon Hill made a great point on the broadcast of the Victory versus Adelaide game. Made a great point. about the stadium, about Cooper Stadium. And he said how it's quite funny how we complain about the struggles the A-League have when I think it was 11,000 people rocked up Saturday night, perfect conditions, Adelaide victory, big game, big derby, massive atmosphere. Both sides had the ability to nick it at the end of the game, won or draw. It was a good game to go and watch, I would assume, right? Shame the absence of any the absence of any away fans did obviously hinder the atmosphere a bit, but it was a good atmosphere, right? And he made the point about how can we ever how can we ever have problems with the A-League when this can happen, right? Obviously saying it as a how can we have problems, but we still do, right? That type of thing. He wasn't complaining about people complaining about the league, right? And it made me think. It made me think to myself, and I actually tweeted about it. I said, that is actually the most accurate thing that regarding stadiums that can be said, in my opinion. I think what the A-League needs to survive is Cooper Stadium is arguably one of the best stadiums in the country, right? You have Central Coast Stadium is great. It's really cool. It's a really, really cool stadium, right? Hold 15, 20,000 max. Small, rectangular. Shock how much the atmosphere can help. Well, shock how much that can help the atmosphere, right? Small, rectangular, intimate, and has grandstands, has the ability to be a game that can be broadcasted professionally, but also feels close and intimate. They're the perfect grounds for this league, in my opinion. I think 60,000 capacity fishbowl stadiums. I don't see it. And then subsequently, 4,000-5,000 amateur Sunday League NPL stadiums for the long term isn't the way forward. Macedonia Park for Perth, I think for now that's good. I think for now it's good. It's doing its job. In the meantime, it's doing its job. I think it's cool. I do think it's really cool, right? But I just think if you could duplicate Cooper Stadium 12 times over and have each team have a stadium very, very similar to Cooper Stadium, I think the league would be in such a better position. Because what the A-League needs, and I've said this so many times, I don't want to get onto a rant because I want to end this quite soon. What the A-League needs is that it needs people to go, right? And people are sheep, right? People are sheep. If I see 10,000 people going to one spot, I'm probably gonna be like, oh, what's over there? I might go. I might follow, right? If I see two crowds walking straight, and I see one with 100 people and one with 10,000 people, I'm probably going to go to the one with the 10,000 people because that's probably attracting more people for a reason, right? And because the A League can't compete with the Premier League and the Bundesliga and the Serie A in terms of quality of league, right? What it needs to attract fans is a good atmosphere, and good atmospheres come from small, intimate, controlled, family, but also intimidating stadiums like Cooper's, right? Amy Park to a lesser extent because Victory aren't going to get crowds, but I still think that applies. Sydney Football Stadium I think is good, but I don't know. The old Pertec Stadium. I was watching some old Western Sydney games. I was watching some old Western Sydney Wanderers games. The old Pertec Stadium. Well, that's what it's called, right? That was so cool. That stadium was so cool. It was really, really cool. Bankwest is great by all accounts, but I don't know, it just doesn't have the same vibe. But that's just something that I thought of when listening to Simon Hill's broadcast. I thought it was interesting and I wanted to bring it up. Okay, let's finish things up quickly because I want to end this and go and watch the tennis. My phone's died, so I don't know the scores on any of the games. So I'm going to be just as in shock when I go downstairs and find out. Anyway, who went into footed? Basically, this is the only segment on this podcast, and we finish it up with this segment where we go through a player, club, organisation, pundit, venue, anyone and anything within the footballing landscape that has done something daft or stupid or silly or dumb or... I think I use the word daft once a week, and it's when I introduce this segment. And this time it is Macedonia Park's lights going out for the Sydney FC Perth Glory game, which subsequently led to a 102nd minute equaliser by David Williams for Perth Glory. Peak A-League. It's great. It's the character of the league. Some may say it's unprofessional. I say it's character. Okay? I say it's character. Okay. That is enough for this episode. I can't do a preview of the week because my phone's died, so I can't look at the fixtures. So, Chelsea will probably lose. So will Liverpool. Arsenal will probably win, and there's going to be 4 red cards in one game. Fuck it, I don't know. Thank you all very much for watching another episode of the 2 Foot Tackle Podcast. Thank you very much for watching another episode of the 2 Foot Tackle Podcast. Losing my train of thought there for a second, but make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, like all the podcasts, share it around on all the socials. It would mean the world. All the socials are in the description of YouTube and I've got bios on. Link in the bio, both Twitter and Instagram, where you can get all your 2 Foot Tackle podcast needs. Make sure you tune into next week, where we'll be touching on this coming week's footballing actions, footballing happenings, I should say. Yes. Thank you very much for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Speak to you guys next time, and goodbye.